microphone.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Porterfield from Career Services. Welcome to the Major of the Month panel presentation on the Health and Human Services concentration. With us today, we have an expert panel of 3 people, and we have little technical issues. We can see just one of the panelists, and the other 2 are, trust me, they are there, and they're going to share their insight and wisdom from their years and going into their career force. So first off, I have Erica Levy, who's the Assistant Dean for Administration at Audrey Cohen School of Human Services and Education, and that's at the Metropolitan College of New York. Panelist number 2 is Kelly Thompson, who is a school-based health clinic social worker with Glida Health and is also an adjunct faculty member at Bryan and Stratton College. And our third panelist is Ellen Fink-Samnick, and she is the principal owner of Health Professional Workforce, empowering educating healthcare's transdisciplinary professionals. So I'd like to thank them all for being here today. And we'll start off with Ellen, because we can see Ellen. Ellen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and walk us through your career path thus far?
Well, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. We do not have snow in Washington, D.C., where I am, so always good to be online. So it's 32 years since I graduated with my master's degree from the University of Buffalo, way back in 1983. I hope the majority of you were born at that point. Hopefully you're all laughing. But I graduated with a clinical concentration degree and felt I was ready to take on the world. Of course, I found a job working in the one place I would never be, hospitals. I loved the energy, though. I loved the team experience, the collaboration, the ability to use my social work expertise daily, and I enjoyed facilitating the processes for individuals and patients and families and groups all across the health and behavioral health realm. I transitioned easily into something that became known as case management in hospitals in the mid-90s, and found that my social work experience in assessing the biopsychosocial spiritual realm, which I know is something that many of you are learning or finishing up a semester in as we speak, was really helpful because it gave me that broad perspective to look at that whole big picture that our clients and communities exist in. By about 2004, though, about 20 years out of my degree, I suddenly became very concerned about the workforce. I was feeling that my colleagues, my other social workers, psychiatrists, physicians, the nurses I worked with were so worn, torn, and tired that there was no way that they could render the sort of quality health care that people really hoped to experience. And it was like a trigger went off in me. I went into work one day and said, I can't do this anymore, and I would not recommend any of you ever do anything this drastic. But I quit that job and created my own company, which the formal title is actually EFS Supervision Strategies. And my goal was to empower the workforce and the professionals that comprise the workforce, much as I had empowered and advocated for the patients and their families all those years. So every contract I take on at this point, and I'm now 12 years in just about to that journey, incorporated and became a formal company about 8 years ago, everything I touch is about education, is about enhancing the awareness, the competencies, and really amping up professionals to be successful in whatever they want to accomplish within the field. So I get to do all sorts of really cool stuff now. I teach. In fact, I raced over to my home office from an MSW class I was teaching at George Mason University in Virginia. I moderate a professional group on LinkedIn called Ellen's Ethical Lens. I get to develop new models and standards of practice for the industry, and have the opportunity to do a lot of professional speaking on ethics and technology and professional identity and accreditation, and actually just published a book with a nursing colleague on a new competency-based model for professional case management. Every day is a new adventure for me, and this is actually my first Google Hangout, so I'm excited to be with everybody right now. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ellen, for sharing. Why don't we move on to you, Erica?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Erica. I graduated Buffalo back in December of 2002. I graduated slightly earlier than I was supposed to, or else I would have graduated in spring of 03. So originally, I went in as a graphic design major, and then realized that I liked doing it on my own, not being taught how to draw. And one of my friends said, "What about human services?" And I was like, well, what's that? You know, and there was just so much that you can do with it, and it was so flexible as far as, you know, what you wanted to do, whether it be working in a hospital, which I did as an internship, or, you know, working with students, working with children with special needs, working with anybody, basically. So in doing that, I went straight into my master's in counseling at Hofstra, which is a school out in Long Island, and I realized I wanted to become a guidance counselor in a high school, but they focused on K-12. So after looking for a really long time in positions where I would be a guidance counselor and realizing it was kind of tough looking for that in the field, I went to the higher ed realm, so to speak, and no regrets. I've been working in higher ed since, I would say, right after my master's. I would say about 2005. I was a hall director at Stony Brook, and then went on to working as an advisor, and I loved working as an advisor so much that I'm now doing my second master's at Columbia in higher education. Yeah, so that's kind of like the path I took, and I love every minute that I was at Buffalo, and I miss it. And I wish all of you, you know, luck in the program as well. It's really great.
Great. Thank you, Erica. How about you, Kelly?
Hi, guys. I'm Kelly. I started out, always loved working with kids, so I knew that that was where I wanted to be with my career. So I started out at Niagara, where I did my undergrad in psychology and did some internships in schools. Really loved the schools, but really wanted to do the clinical thing. So I went on for a master's in clinical psychology with the intent to then go on for a PhD. Timing didn't really work out the way I had planned, so I came back to Buffalo, worked in a preschool for a year, got back to working with kids and loved it, and then decided to go on for my MSW at UB, which I finished in 2012. So since then, I worked in outpatient mental health at Child and Adolescent Treatment Services, also worked at the Family Help Center doing teacher-child interaction training, and have been teaching at Bryant and Stratton and Erie Community College doing psychology and human services counseling classes. And then, like Wayne said, now I'm at, through Kaleida as a school-based social worker in one of the Kaleida clinics in Buffalo Public Schools.
Great. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys to go back a little bit further in your academic experience to your undergraduate career. And can you just tell us or share or elaborate what led you to choose your degree, you know, in the social sciences, interdisciplinary, or in the humanities in general? And I guess we'll start with Kelly this time.
Okay. That was always the plan from a young age. I actually started out wanting to do animal psychology, and then it morphed into human psychology. But I loved working with people. I always wanted to be with people. I worked with kids for every job I had in high school and then moving forward. So I really enjoy meeting new people every day. I enjoy that I don't necessarily sit in front of a computer or on the phone all day. I get to be face-to-face with all different types of people. And what led me to the MSW program in particular is that it's such a versatile degree, and there's so many different things that you can do with it.
Great. Let's go to Ellen. Ellen, can you go back to your undergrad days?
I can. And I remember thinking I wanted to teach. That was how I began my undergraduate career at UB. I was going to be an English major and maybe go into teaching. And somewhere along the line realized how much I enjoyed while living in the dorms, just always seeming to be the one that people came to hang out with and be kind of a mirror to whatever seemed to be going on in their life and ask, gee, did I make the right decision? And what do you think? And always feeling very comfortable in that role. And as I moved through the courses, I found myself actually as a sociology major very interested in how groups and populations interacted with each other, probably because I was always so fascinated with how the group of people I lived with in Porter and then Wilkeson interacted with each other. And somewhere along the way, I was provided an opportunity because I had completed all of my sociology credits so quickly. I was going to be done by the end of my junior year with all of those requirements. And I was invited to sit down and dialogue with the then dean of the School of Social Work, Elizabeth Harvey. And I just remember this woman invited me into her office. She greeted me in a dress and high heels, and we walked into her office, and she kicked off her shoes, she crossed her legs, kind of plopped down in the chair and said, "So, talk to me." And it was like, that was what I wanted to do. I said, that's what I want to be. And that was how I got into social work, because she began to tell me about how she uses herself in the process to communicate with clients and assess where they're at and look at diagnosing and different types of intervention and working with folks through all of the challenges and the dynamics that they experience. And I said, that's for me. And suddenly there was that passion, the passion that I love to see in my students now and colleagues that I work with. And I moved forward after that.
All right. And Erica, I know you kind of shared a little bit from your opening introduction about how you went from graphic design into the health and human services, but is there any specific details that you can elaborate on?
I think when I became an RA in my second year, I was actually really close with my first year, or maybe it was my third year. Yeah, my third year I was an RA, and I was really close to my first year RA, and second year I was asking her about the position, and because I was like, that's kind of fun, you know, just hanging out with students and getting to know them better, and you know, kind of getting a sense of where they were all at in their academic plan and how they were progressing and wanting to, you know, do all the programming and everything else. And that kind of led me into, oh, I could do this. Plus, you know, finding out what they were registering for during the semesters, you know, beyond and all that stuff. So that kind of led me to going to get my master's in counseling.
Great. All right. As we all know, like the health and human services concentration can really go into many different industries, many different careers. I'll start with Erica this time around. Can you just share some general advice for the students that will be listening to this or watching right now about if they're thinking about going into a career in higher education?
I think the best thing, at least that I've experienced, is to take any and all experiences, internships, even volunteer things. Just take every experience and go full force with it. You know, as a student, I was very involved, but getting involved into anything that you can get your hands on will always help in the long run. You know, when I first was doing internship in my junior year, it was at the cancer hospital up in Buffalo. And although I wasn't necessarily 100% working in a hospital, I still was able to communicate with children and their families, and that kind of assisted in, you know, wanting to work with people, and it kind of gave me that sense of, you know, not only volunteering but getting to see a different side of where I wanted to be at later on. It also showed me, you know, do I want to do this? How would I have known, you know, maybe, you know, going off to medical school later on? Well, I'm in a hospital now, maybe this will give me that choice and decision of whether I really want to do that later on. So that would be my biggest piece of advice to everybody.
Kelly, how about your area in social work, and maybe even about your supplemental career, being an adjunct faculty member as well?
Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's been, and Wayne, we had talked before, I've had a very interesting journey. But I think when I look at this next generation of students and even think of my own students, you know, one of the things, I tell them two things specifically. First is, one, we are amid the most interesting, fascinating, yet convoluted times in health and behavioral health. And that means there are lots of opportunities out there. Very often I see students, they graduate and they say, I know exactly what population I want to work with. I know exactly what I want to do. And in some respects that's good, but then they dismiss the ability to see beyond that and to see opportunities. For example, when I graduated and I found out that I loved working in hospitals, it was, wow, that's where I'm going to be the rest of my life. Little did I know the kind of changes that we would see in the healthcare industry that would have a big ripple effect to how social workers in hospitals are viewed and the sort of skill set they needed. So what I tell students now is you really need to be open to learning. You need to be enthusiastic about that learning. Don't immediately take that first job without some exploration. The other thing I tell them is they need to trust their gut. We always tell folks, you know, you need to trust your clinical gut. Well, sometimes those little antennas within you come up and go, you know what, this may not be for me. But you don't know unless you try. However, you need to listen to that inner voice as well. Very powerful. And how often do we hear ourselves after the fact saying, I really should have listened to that voice. Really should have listened.
All right, Kelly, how about you? Like, kind of almost like the same thing about going into your area of social work, but also, you know, being adjunct at Bryan and Stratton. You could share a little bit about that?
Yes, I was thinking along the same lines of what the other two have already said about not getting set in a bubble in one population that you want to work with. I started out, you know, I want to work with kids, and one of my first graduate internships was with adults. And I went into it thinking, this is not what I want to do, this is not where I want to be, but found myself really opening up to the experience and really gaining a lot from that even now working with kids, I definitely still use because you have to work with their parents. So was a big eye-opener for me too as I got into working with kids, is you have to be prepared to work with their parents and their teachers and any other caregivers as well. So having that knowledge of working with adults has really been beneficial to me now in my current position. Another thing that I really focus on with my teaching as well as in my own practice is learning good self-care skills for myself. I think in any human services position that's hugely important, and especially, I mean, we're supposed to be teaching these people that we work with how to take care of themselves, but how can we do that if we're not really taking of ourselves? So getting into some good habits early on so that when you are working with others you can model those good skills and avoid some of those burnout issues that do happen to some people down the road in their careers.
All right. Now, there are many students that end up entering the workforce right away with their bachelor's degree. What opportunities do you know of in your field, or just through your exposure in the profession, that are open to students graduating with a BA in Health and Human Services? I guess we'll start with Ellen this time.
Sure. You know, I actually, when I saw this question, Wayne, I found myself doing a little research, just because one of the things that we notice is depending on the state where people are moving to, there are new positions in emerging across different populations. So, for example, in my neck of the woods, there is a whole new generation of in-home therapy and counseling agencies that are hungry to hire those with a bachelor's degree, and they're known as QMHPs, Qualified Mental Health Providers. A lot of the housing programs are very focused on hiring those with a health and human service degree because they want these folks to work with clients to that highest level of self-sufficiency. They can be professional advocates for healthcare organizations. There are a number of case management positions where they can also be hired in assorted programming. A new and budgeting area is that of the child life specialist, and while there are additional courses that are required, that is another new area that folks can do, and many of those other courses they're able to take online, and the organizations often will provide them. Also, another area, there are many health and human service professionals that love, obviously we're in a technology age, and informatics is very, very popular, especially professionals who have an understanding of health and human services plus informatics. That whole newest generation of electronic medical health records is providing a lot of opportunities for new health and human services graduates. Those are a few that come to mind.
Great. How about we go with Erica? How about you next?
I actually had something that had a whole list of different job opportunities, and I don't know where I put it now. I'm really sorry. But, you know, working with the students that I have now in human services, you know, a lot of the 1199 areas in not only social work but also in human services areas, working in hospitals, working in different clinics that have great opportunity before going into, say, a master's program. So I'm sorry, I thought I had it and I don't know where I put it. I must have misplaced it somewhere.
Sure. You know what? We can go with Kelly and maybe you can do a little searching and see if you can find it.
Yeah.
A lot of the positions I've seen are in case management, working with families to link them to services. A lot of skill building and mentoring programs are also out there that are always looking for people to help build kids up, or adults. They have them for adults with disabilities also, some skill builders and mentors, job coaches, things like that. Some of my students work in volunteer coordination with different human services agencies to coordinate all the volunteers that are doing a lot of the work for the nonprofits. So those are some good options there.
All right. Any luck, Erica?
No, I'm looking, as we speak, I'm looking, but I don't seem to find it. No. Maybe someone took it out of my office.
That's okay. If you find it, we can come back to it.
I refer to it a lot, so if that means anything.
All right, let's move on to the next question for our panelists. Knowing that many career paths involved an advanced degree, what advice would you give to our students considering an MSW, a PhD, MBA, or a JD? And I guess we'll start with Kelly this time.
Okay. I guess one of the big things is do your research on the degrees. If you have an idea of what you want to do with the various volunteer opportunities and internship opportunities that you're hopefully taking advantage of, and then really look into what each degree allows you to do. Like I said, I went for the Master's in Clinical Psychology first and then ended up doing the MSW, and I could have just done the MSW and do what I do now. So just be aware of what the options are and what each one allows you to do. Another thing is a lot of agencies, at least here in Buffalo that I know of, if you start working with them as a bachelor's level employee, they will help pay for your MSW. So pay attention to some of those opportunities that are out there as you're looking for jobs when you graduate.
All right. Ellen?
Well, I think Kelly had great suggestions. In addition, I really only have one thing to add. You know, with respect to the MSW world, that's today's minimum standard. And so you may want to take some time off, find your way in the field, but you will need that advanced degree, especially in social work. Do the research, understand the differences, as Kelly said, between the various degrees, and even within social work. I have seen more students come in and not really understand the difference in a program between the clinical concentration and even the social change concentration. Do some thinking about down the road, if you even ponder the possibility that you want to do some clinical practice and what that would mean. Based on the state that you move into, it could really impact whether you will need to go back for additional coursework or things like that. I've seen students get social change degrees and then several years later find they have to take 3 and 4 extra courses to get that clinical degree. So the other thing is you also go to sessions. Many schools have sessions where you can meet with students and talk with students. So you want to be able to dialogue with them about things they liked and things they don't like. So just take that initiative. It's your career, and you need to get some answers to those questions.
All right, thank you. Erica, how about you? Any recommendations for students pursuing an advanced degree?
I would say, from personal experience, look at every single class that you would be taking in a particular program. I think it's so important. I was originally looking at one program, and in looking and comparing the two, one had a completely different philosophy than the other, even though they were both higher ed programs. So, you know, that can apply to any of the programs, whether it be an MSW, whether it be an MBA or a PhD or whatever. So that's a huge, huge thing. Also, save every syllabus that you have taken over the years, because by doing that, you can prove that you've taken certain classes to justify that, you know, whatever you learned or the concepts learned, you've learned already. By doing that, I saved myself a big chunk of money. So it's more time to focus on the classes that you really need to, you know, understand the concepts in your program. So that's my biggest step of advice. In knowing now that I'm in my second master's, in the first master's it was focused on basically K-12. So now I'm in an advanced master's program, which is great, but if I only knew back then that I really wanted to have a mix of both, you know, the K-12 and the higher ed, then I wouldn't necessarily have to go into this program now. So just beware of that.
All right. The next question is around job searching. We know that you know, once students, you know, earn their degree, it's such a huge accomplishment in life, and it's such a tremendous challenge. But one of the biggest challenges lies ahead, which is, you know, utilizing your degree and securing a position in the workforce. So, what job searching advice would you give to students exploring opportunities in your field? Are there any specific strategies that you would encourage them to employ? And we'll start with Ellen again.
Yeah, very, very focused recommendations here, Wayne. The first thing I always tell students and new professionals, as readily as you are being interviewed, you are also interviewing that employer. I totally get you're graduating, you need a job, you're hungry for the job, but very often you walk in and folks will forget that they have the opportunity to ask questions. Find out amid those nerves. Go in with a list of questions that you want answers to. It may be things around what are the employer's expectations for the person being hired? Is the position you're interviewing for a new one? What happened to the person in it before? Did they leave it? Why did they leave it? If you're not objective and you're only focused on, I want this job, I want this job, I want this job, you're not going to see some of the other little things that may crop up, or some of the concerns that you would normally, you know, you may walk out of there with. You'll be immune to them. And when you go in, you need to be open, and you need to feel comfortable. Very often I'll say, so how comfortable did you feel in the interview? Oh, I didn't even really think about that. Well, It could also save you a lot of time when you then take that job and realize maybe a month or two in that it was not the right move. So remember that you are having the opportunity to interview them as readily as they are interviewing you.
Well said, well said. Erica, how about you?
Well, I just got this job in September, so I definitely can attest to being aggressive and finding every possible network that you know of, using LinkedIn, using Facebook, using, the connections that you've made throughout the years, with the departments that you've worked with at Buffalo, using the Career Center as a helpful tool to work on your resume, to work on your cover letter. You may think it's like the most amazing piece of, work, but then when you go there, then they may have some ideas for you to add to that. Specifically for higher ed, I went to the different websites specifically for higher ed jobs, and that was a huge help. Also, working on going to the specific school sites, that was also helpful because not everything is posted on the bigger sites. Joining the portals, joining the CUNY portal, well, at least in the New York City area, trying to get into that way. And also, joining LinkedIn groups and asking the questions and trying to find out the answers on it. So that's what I would say.
Great. Kelly, advice?
Yes, I can attest to Wayne's resume and cover letter workshops. They're very good for human services. I did those while I was at UB. But the other thing, and Erica touched on it, is the networking. If you're staying in the Buffalo area, it's a very small human services community. Everybody knows everybody, so attend every networking event that you can. A lot of the faculty members at UB are part of different nonprofits and other organizations in human services field around Buffalo, so keep in touch with them. And then as you get jobs and get interviews, get business cards, because those connections will be a huge help to you down the road, whether it's in the position you get hired for then or a couple of years from now when you're working with a client. You can say, hey, I refer this to somebody that I met with previously. And then as you keep those connections going, that may turn into other job opportunities going forward.
All right, great. Kind of staying on the whole networking theme, I just would like to hear from our panelists maybe some specific organizations or methods that you would endorse and employ for our students to take up. I guess I'll start with Erica.
Wait, specific what again?
Like professional organizations or networking areas that you would recommend going into your field? I used, when I was in I'm still in graduate school, but back when I was in the first program, I was heavily involved in counseling groups, and I was like the president of the counseling club. It like networked you, and it helped you out, and you got to meet the other people in your program more so than you would just in class. And I think that's really important. Any of the local groups, I know there was like a Long Island guidance counselor. I mean, we're talking back in 2004, so it was some kind of group just for Long Island guidance counselors, and that was a huge networking event. And programs, they did networking events, they did all this type of stuff. Now it's going to conferences for higher education, and getting to know people from different schools. When you're in higher education, you want to make sure that you don't stick with one school for your whole career. You want to move around. I can confidently say I've been in SUNY, CUNY, private, public, you name it, and it has made such a difference in knowing so many different people. And I believe that that's how I ended up in this particular school that I'm working at now. So I would definitely say anyone who's going into higher ed to have that diversity on your resume. All right, Kelly, how about you?
Locally, there's the Western New York Young Professionals group. I get regular emails from them about different networking events that are going on in the area. UB's Alumni Association does a lot of good networking events. Then there's the local chapters of national organizations like the National Association of Social Workers. They do a lot of different events. I've also been a part of some groups through meetup.com. So there are some groups that you can find based on common interests and get together with some of them and for social events, but then also do some good networking there. They have resource fairs locally here in Western New York that you can go to and meet some people that are working for other agencies in human services fields. Some nonprofits do open houses that you can check into and see what services they offer and meet the people that work there. So those are some of the options around here.
Great, thank you. Ellen?
Well, I think my esteemed panelists have done a pretty thorough job. But the one thing that I would add to that, and I was thinking about this, whether you are attending an event in person, whether you're attending a group online, some sort of web chat, you always want to make sure to present with a presence. I had a student the other day, they were going to an event with some professionals. They were advised by their field practitioner to go, and she said, "Should I wear a suit?" And I said, yes. When in doubt, when you're not sure, wear a suit. She approached me before class today and she said, "You were right. I was really glad I wore the suit because there were a whole bunch of potential employers there. And they were very interested to talk to me simply because I had the suit on." And they asked her questions. So I think, you know, we often forget to put that attention into how we look, how we're speaking, what we are wearing to that event, and how we communicate. Be very intentional about how you communicate at these wonderful venues, whether it's an alumni event, whether it is a local National Association of Social Workers chapter or a Case Management Society chapter, because you don't want to just start talking just for the sake of talking. You can gain a lot from a conversation just by standing on the periphery and listening and then approaching someone afterwards. The other final thing that I would suggest is, I think it was Kelly that mentioned to have the business cards. Don't be afraid to go up to someone with your card and just say, "I really enjoyed hearing what you had to say about your organization or your role. I would really love the opportunity to talk more," and take that initiative with them. I have gotten a series of jobs just from doing that and from following up with people who've said, "You know what, call me at my office and make an appointment, and let's talk more about what you might be interested in." And sure enough, they may not have thought that they had the funding for a particular position, but guess what? And there I was, and it didn't even need to get posted. So you never know where those opportunities are going to come, and you have to take advantage of them.
If I could add one more thing there. As you're reading things, if you read an article in a magazine or a newspaper or an academic journal and you like what they're talking about, you can reach out to the person who wrote it. And I've made a lot of connections in that way, reaching out to people at other universities and other organizations, and they've become good contacts as well.
Great advice, panelists. All very, very sound advice. Moving on to the next question. It's around the job market. Can you describe for me what the current or future job market looks like in your field? And I guess we'll start with Kelly this time.
Okay. It's not going away anytime soon. There's so many different opportunities out there and so many different types of agencies. Craigslist is actually a good place to look for human services jobs. There's a lot of nonprofits that post on there, but there's just so many different types of opportunities out there. Some are grant funded, some are nonprofits, there's just so many different things. I can't even narrow it down to really say anything more specific. There's so much.
All right. Ellen?
No, I think Kelly's absolutely right. There is a lot, and it is promising, and it is thriving to continue to see the growth and evolution of human service positions out there. I mean, I checked the Bureau of Labor Statistics the other day, and they're still saying social work is projected to grow 19% until 2022. That is faster than the average for most other occupations. And you see those numbers and you go, wow, what, how does that translate to jobs? And much of employment growth is being driven by the increased demand for healthcare and social services professionals, whether they're working in integrated behavioral health organizations. There's a strong focus in the healthcare community about pulling in those individuals that have gotten a foundation of knowledge in assessment and understanding human behavior and psychopathology. And so that's the health and human services world. Also, when you look at expansion of things like accountable care organizations, community health programming, and a whole series of other healthcare reform and enhancements, despite what we're hearing that healthcare reform may all go away, it's not going away because all of the programming has already been developed and is in place. That means the jobs are in place. And every day, I know in my LinkedIn group, I post 8 articles a day. Many of them are on new and exciting programs. There was one I saw up in New York. I have a colleague up at Mount Sinai and also one at Sloan Kettering, and they were talking in their case management departments about the evolving opportunities for new social workers coming out of school. And it was just exciting to hear about it. So they're out there. They're very much out there.
All right, Erica, how about you with higher education or education in general? What does the job market look like?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on your location. I mean, in the city, it's very competitive. I know that from personal experience. It took me about a year to find something, so it wasn't the easiest thing to do. But like I said, it depends on how aggressive you are, and it depends on the networks that you've had and the networks that you've created over the years. It also depends on what you've done previously. Like I said, doing any type of experience, any type of internship, any type of opportunity that you're given, you know, even if you are attending a graduate program and you're looking for a job after, take advantage of what the graduate program does for you, the people that are in there, the professors, the teaching assistants. A teaching assistant just happened to be on one of the panels that I was on for looking for a job. So you never know, you know, who's going to be there when you are interviewing. But, you know, in higher ed, you can go anywhere, you know, to find a job, you know, in the education field. There's so many different colleges, and don't stick to just one. Go to all, you know, whether it be a research university or a non-for-profit or a profit or even a community college. I mean, just the world is your oyster.
All right. I just want to piggyback on the networking question. I know all of you have pretty strong LinkedIn profile presence. How do you think our students should be utilizing LinkedIn as a tool? Anyone want to go first?
I mean, I'm thinking like what I use it for now and what I was using it for is completely different. Before, you know, I wasn't really serious about it just because I was, you know, when I was in the position, you don't take it as seriously when you're younger. But, you know, now that, you know, I'm in graduate school as well as in the position that I'm in now, I feel like I want to network with other people that have that similar positions where I can bounce ideas off of them, you know, to see what else they've done, compare, you know, what kind of skills do they have that I may need in my position, that kind of thing. So I think it's really important to use something like LinkedIn, and I think it's a great tool to also, you know, if you're looking for a job, you know, connect with someone that in that position already and say, hey, do you know of any openings? Look at their resume and see what kind of stuff they've done, and see what else you may need to do as far as, you know, upgrading your resume to get that job that you're looking for. So,
Kelly, how about you?
I've used it to network most recently. I've connected with other people who are working in different Buffalo public schools to bounce different ideas off of what's working in their school, what other outside agencies they're having success with referring families to. And that's really, you know, the networking thing is what I've been using it most for lately.
Okay. Ellen?
Well, I think there are, as we said, there are multiple uses for a site such as LinkedIn. Some people use it strictly to post their profile. They may not want to have a website but they may have a LinkedIn profile, and they will update it and keep it a fluid living document, because every time you update it, all your connections are notified. So some people will update their profile simply to bring attention to it. They will post their CV on it or their resume. They will post examples of their work. They'll post presentations they've done. Some people will use LinkedIn for information gathering, as we've been talking about. Some will use it to find opportunities. They may be looking to move. The groups have groups on LinkedIn, and that can be very overwhelming to someone who is just getting on. So start with things like finding the groups for organizations that you may be a member of different professional associations, national associations, social workers. There are a number of female executive groups. There are also those, there was a group I saw recently for those that have business degrees but are interested in the not-for-profit management world. So try to just do a search on the top and find those groups. Many of those groups also have job opportunity links that you can, where people will post different jobs. Many of the groups will provide the opportunity to ask a question about other professionals in the industry. I think that you can also use it as a way to just keep learning about maybe exams that you may need to take for your licensure. There are a number of groups that focus on licensure prep and certification prep, because we're in, I think, a practice culture where it's about whatever credentials you have after your name, and it also makes you very competitive. So, but one thing I always say, go on, play a little bit, work on the profile. You're not going to pick it up all at once. But you do want to kind of get used to it and use it over time so that you can master it. Just don't live on it totally, because then you won't be able to find a job because you'll be so busy on LinkedIn.
All right. One group I'd like our students to join, if they haven't already done so, is the University at Buffalo Mentor Program, and I believe a couple of our panelists are already members of it. But it will be a good way for you, too, to connect with our panelists afterwards, should you have some specific questions that we don't cover here today. Moving on, this would be the final question before I ask for final thoughts from our panelists, but are there volunteer or internship or job opportunities with your company or organizations right now that you can share with our audience? And I guess I'll start with Erica.
Unfortunately, we do not, but if there are any, I'll definitely let you know. I'll email you. But yeah, unfortunately, we do not have that.
Do you take interns at all, Erica? Or?
No, we don't.
Okay.
No. It's a really small school. We only have about 1,200 students, so.
All right. Kelly, how about you?
I've only been at my current position for about a month, so I'm not 100% sure on what all opportunities are available. Kaleida does have a very strong job search website, though, KaleidaHealth.org, and then there's an employee or a job search tab. I do know that there are a couple of MSW social worker positions available right now in the school-based clinics, and there are tons of volunteer opportunities in the hospitals.
All right. Abigail, what about you down in Virginia?
I'm presuming you meant Ellen, unless
I'm sorry.
I had to change my name, like Abigail. So, you know, my company, I'm a sole practitioner and an independent contractor, so I don't necessarily have opportunities. However, folks want to come down to Washington, D.C., I'm not going to lie. It is a very rich community in terms of internship opportunities for students that want to continue to learn. Volunteering, you can volunteer for any sort of practice setting or area of interest that you would like. Organizations love to have volunteers, and that's across the board. To give you one, there isn't one. I mean, people will come down and they'll do work for Cornerstone, which is a very large housing program that works with chronically mentally ill. They will do work with the Whitman Walker Foundation, which is a large provider of resources to AIDS patients. the list is endless down here. It really is.
All right. Final thoughts from our panelists and how to help guide and advise our students that are going into the professional world or into an advanced degree program. I'll start with Kelly.
I think the biggest thing is really just to get your hands into as many different things as possible. Jump on those volunteer opportunities, jump on those leadership opportunities, because those go on your resume and they look fantastic when you can go in and say that, yes, I've led people. When you're going into work with people in a human services field, it's really great to show that you have a diverse volunteer opportunities and other activities that you've been a part of. In the Western New York area and, well, throughout the country really, but Buffalo, it has a high refugee population, so getting into a lot of different diverse cultural activities can be a huge asset to you as well.
Great, thank you. Ellen?
I think two things come to mind. You need to tout your clout, as I call it. You know, certainly being involved, as Kelly said, in a lot of different organizations and endeavors is very good, and they all speak to who you are, but you need to know how to present it. I often tell folks they need to be able to do an elevator statement, 35 seconds of what you do, what you bring to the table, and why, what your value is to the organization. Very simple, straightforward. We talk a lot about competency-based language. Use that as you need to. Often people are very focused on applying to positions that are online because we're in such an online world. I'm looking at the camera, do not only apply to what you see online, okay? You heard me say it. You need to take the initiative, develop. There are still a lot of organizations, particularly in the health and human services, that will love to get your cover letter and hear about what is unique about you. Maybe in Wayne, I don't know if you advise your students to put a tagline at the top of the CV. That's something that speaks to who they are. Like at the top of mine, it says empowering the healthcare's transdisciplinary workforce. Something that is unique about them is very helpful. You can email it, you can walk it in there, you can send it. Advocate for yourself as readily as you have learned to advocate for your clients.
Great. Thanks, Ellen. All right, and I guess we'll go with Erica. You can take us home.
Okay, just repeat the question. I'm sorry.
Just the final words of wisdom and advice for our students, either entering the professional workforce or continuing it on for an advanced degree.
I think agreeing with both Ellen and with Kelly, taking those experiences, like I keep repeating myself, but it really does help you in the long run. It helped me, you know, I wasn't working for a year, and, you know, having had school behind me and having the support from the school that I attended for the master's that I'm in now, and having been able to do grad assistantships, that assisted me in getting this position that I have now. You know, not knowing where I would be going next, having been in a full-time position forever and then not having anything at all, and going into that part-time job was definitely different because I was working with like 21-year-olds. It's a little different for me, but at the same time I was working in the provost's office. I was working in a department that I never thought I would be in, and learning certain skills like payroll and working with faculty and learning about how to put together a dossier for someone to get a promotion in as a staff member and faculty was really, really interesting. And knowing that definitely applied to this position that I have now in having to work with faculty and learning the other side of things. So like I said, it really, really helps you to take advantage of those things that pop up that you never know you'll get into. And also, I still promote LinkedIn to the best ability that I can, as it was a huge help as well, and still is.
Well, great. I'm going to just ask our panelists just to hold on post-broadcast. I just have a couple things to share with you, but I'd like to thank all of you for your time today and sharing your expertise and wisdom with our student population here at UB. So Erica, Ellen, and Kelly, thank you so much. For our students out there that are watching or going to watch a recorded version, take advantage of coming into the Career Services office as our panelists can can refer back to. We can get you prepared with job readiness strategies, getting your resume together, practice your interviewing, teaching you about the art of networking. So it's an invaluable service that we want all our students to really take full advantage of. So once again, thank you, panelists. I think this was an excellent session. I learned a lot from you, and we hope to continue our relationship with all of you. All right? Good afternoon, everyone.